Welcome to Conversations with My Sister's Keepers, where we bring awareness, share stories, and promote healing-centered conversations for lived experience professionals and allies in the gender-based violence and recovery sectors. I'm Shameen Brown, and together we'll explore strategies, resources, and insights to support wellness, recovery, and leadership. Join us as we challenge stigma, celebrate autonomy, and normalize the healing journey. Let's build a community of understanding and empowerment, one conversation at a time.
Hello, thank you for joining me today. I have with us Celia Williamson. Dr. Celia Williamson has been engaged in anti-trafficking work for over 30 years. She has published numerous articles, books, and reports. She founded the first anti-trafficking program in Ohio in 1993 and directly worked with victims in Toledo for several years. Dr. Williamson possesses 2 doctorate degrees, one in social work and an honorary doctorate in social justice. During her career, Dr. Williamson brought $3.5 million to the community for research and services. She co-hosts the oldest and largest annual academic conference on human trafficking in the world, and has included representatives from all 50 US states and 60 countries. She founded the first anti-trafficking coalition in her county and has been named the 14th most influential social worker in the nation within the last 10 years. She ranks among the top 100 globally and historically. Currently, she serves as the executive director of the Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute at the University of Toledo. We are so happy to have her here with us today. One of my heroes, Dr. Celia Williamson. Nice to have you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shameen, for doing this. And you, of course, are one of my heroes. And I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity to be on here to talk about, what I've done and what I do.
Conversations with My Sister's Keepers are crucial for survivors and survivor leaders everywhere. This is part of our aim to challenge the stigma and judgment that many survivors encounter during their healing process. By sharing insights into our own recovery and wellness journeys and our knowledge of the recovery and wellness journeys of others, we can normalize the ongoing and cyclical nature of the recovery experience. We're really feeling that it's time to advance beyond trauma-informed and resilience-based narratives of surviving, thriving, and leading, and to embrace a healing-centered focus on wellness and recoveries.
Yeah, I love that because I really feel if we bring our authentic selves to the table, to the community, to society, we really can begin to normalize the fact that there are a number of us on a healing journey from whatever may have happened. And if we can normalize that, we can open the doors, and we open the doors, we can all open our hearts, and, we can do better work instead of work undercover. We can kind of do work very authentically. I love the idea that this should be a survivor-led movement. And anybody who is genuinely concerned about this issue and not their own egos will know and understand that that is the goal, to help those folks gain their voice, power in their voice, lead movements, lead programs. That is the goal, so that the rest of us can go and be a support. But some of us are too interested in leading and using our egos. Our egos go before us, and that gets us in trouble. And I don't think many of us even understand the real definition of collaboration, or that you don't always have to be the leader. You can, I make a pretty good follower too. I love to follow good leaders. So yeah, I think those goals set your country, in my opinion, on the right path.
Oh, thank you. I love that. So yeah, before I had kind of asked you a little bit about your lived experience and what that looked like in both expertise and education, in both supporting and perhaps even having survived abuse, trauma, addictions, mental health, any of those types of challenges. Yeah. So there's some systemic violence, some racial violence, some hermeneutic, I'm like struggling with that word, but just this idea that because of who you are, you know less, and being provided less epistemic injustice as well, right? Being provided less
Absolutely.
access to knowledge. And hearing your story, I think how amazing to see where you are today as a doctorate. Oh my God, I will never do that. As someone who has their doctorate has, like, it's grueling. And to know that you grew up in an environment that basically told you that you could never be that you shouldn't even try to be that is, very powerful and profound. You were talking about being in school and kind of having that distraction from dealing with the domestic violence, and then, being in school another time without that distraction. It's never that you weren't capable, right? It's that you didn't have the safety
Yes.
to be able to grow and learn.
Yes. It's hard to convey to people that is the core. You have to begin to step forward. And I know that little voice in you that has said, don't do it, or I'm afraid. It has served to protect us, of course, when we were vulnerable or we're still fearful. But sometimes you just have to have that hard-headedness is what I call it, that not listening to those people who have you pegged and saying you are about this, because you know that you're multifaceted and you know that you're multi-talented. And so, you got to start turning that voice up a little each time. Really? But I mean, I remember you talking about the podcast and then putting the pieces in place and now doing the podcast. So it's good for the audience to understand that people still get to that threshold and still fear or whatever will take over, but they just end up pushing through it and doing it.
So, there is that imposter syndrome. You just got to do it anyways.
I've done the same thing at the university. I, got my PhD, got a job at the university, started the conference, which is now in its 22nd year. But
and the name of the conference?
The conference is the Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference, and people can find it at traffickingconference.com.
Yeah, well, and I'll just say that the conference is one of my favorites. It's something that I talk about quite a bit, and I just want to kind of highlight what I find is very unique about it, which caused me to fall in love with it the first time I came. And there's a couple different pieces. First is the open invitation and the prioritization of lived experience experts, having lived experience people come in and share their knowledge. But, alongside that is that we're not getting locked into this polarization of values.
That is exactly what we do. And that's why we call ourselves an academic conference. And people don't always understand that distinction, but an academic conference is not a political conference where everybody comes together and everybody agrees and everybody reaffirms what everybody agrees. An academic conference challenges you to say, here are people that you might not agree with. Here are people you definitely don't agree with. Listen to them, because if you sit and listen, you might walk away thinking, okay, I got to expand my mind to incorporate this new way of thinking. Or I walk away saying, that's why I don't agree with that side. But now I walk away understanding that side's point so that I can be clear in what I don't agree with.
And it goes back to, like, we're starting conversations.
Yeah. And I think if people aren't at the table, then you're missing a vital piece. If you say, we don't want to deal with people who are pro-sex work, we don't want to deal with them, so we're just going to exclude them and we're going to do our own thing, then you miss the boat. Like you can't, we do this all the time in the field of human trafficking or interpersonal trauma or whatever, we do that all the time. But if we thought of it like this, if we thought, oh, these Black people, I'm going to pick on myself because I'm Black. If I said, well, these Black people, we need to help the Black problem. So we're all going to get together but we're going to exclude those Black people because they are loud and boisterous and they're offensive and they make me uncomfortable. So I want to be comfortable. I want to address the issue, but I want to be comfortable first and foremost. Okay, so you can't come to the table to talk about the issue. I mean, when you put it in those terms, it sounds ridiculous. So you have to have conversation with people that make you uncomfortable.
Like, that's some narrow thinking that's actually going to exclude a lot of allies and a lot of people from doing the work that we feel it needs to be done for our communities.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
it's always important to have that open mind and be ready to listen to the folks you least want to listen to, because there's learning there.
That's right, exactly. And I'm telling, and what we experienced at the conference for many of the beginning years, with women particularly who were in pro-sex work, who fought and fought and fought us. And we said, you know what, our sword is down. We're laying our weapons down. We don't have, but they fought us until they understood, oh, wait, you're not fighting us. And it's like, no, we're not fighting you, but I understand that. Again, going back to my experience with oppression, it's like when you first encounter people who are willing to listen, you don't understand, and you don't always come with a good spirit about that. You've been caged, you've been oppressed, and damn it, somebody's going to listen to me, and they're going to, and here's my thoughts, and they're not pretty, and I'm going to tell them to you. And that's fine. Like, I understand that because I experienced that myself. So, for many years we had that. And now we have survivors that help sponsor the conference. We have abolitionists that sponsor the conference. We have sex worker rights people that sponsor the conference, because they understand this is about bringing a national and now a global conversation to bear, and then walking away with those fruits of, the many different fruits that you can pick from. So it takes time. I know growing up, when I was experiencing all those doors closed to me, and as soon as somebody opened the door to me, man, they heard about it. And they were my ally, but they heard about it until till they were able to show me that you're really genuinely trying to support me.
That they could be trusted. I think, like, what I'm hearing you talk about is the lack of trust that comes when you've been victimized. Like, how many people have been nice to you, and that's ended up being, kicking you in the teeth, right?
Yep,
Like, so
exactly.
even if you're listening and you're inviting me to the table, how are you going to abuse me? How are you going to use me? How are you going to exploit me? I can't let my guard down until I know that you're safe.
Exactly.
Right? Your intentions are not enough, but when I experience your impact, I may trust you.
That's
I may
right.
start to.
And that's what it is to understand trauma and the effects of trauma, and having a lived experience, being authentic. I can understand that without having to read it because I've done it.
Exactly. Well, it's a lived experience. And I think, again, we're thinking and talking about the value of lived experience within the context of this podcast. I feel it's so important to understand that journey, to understand the imposter syndrome, the shame, because those things, again, don't go away. It's an ongoing recovery experience. But the reason that it's important to know that and to be willing to invest in and supporting that experience and moving people into wellness is because there is so much value in lived experience. You cannot ever in your life, and I am not apologetic about this, understand trauma and sexual exploitation to the depths that I do, not from reading a book.
That's right.
15 years of being trafficked, and even somebody else who's been trafficked right beside me for 15 years, their lived experience, what they know. We're going to have some similar experiences, yes, but we're also going to have some really different ones. I have a girlfriend who was at risk, and her lived experiences, the things that made her vulnerable to trafficking, is very different from the things that made me vulnerable. And so in that context, even though we may have in the trade had some similar experiences, ran into similar people, our lived experience, our knowledge and understanding of the factors emotionally, psychologically, physically involved in that experience are different. And I can read a textbook and I can tell you that there's parts of that textbook that do not reflect my experience or are not accurate, which is again why it's important to listen to lived experience people. It's important to have them leading these changes. But it's ultimately important that we just value the epistemic knowledge and strength of lived experience people and start to recognize that that is a doctorate degree.
Absolutely. And that is so critical. If you're not opening the door, if you're not doing everything you can to support and lift up, it's like, well, what are you here for? What are you here doing? I mean, my goal is, of course, as you may know, because I've told everybody in the world, is to sit down by the beach and drink my glass of wine. That's my ultimate goal. I mean, these people talking about, oh, you work so hard, you got 2 doctorates. No, you have lost what fun is. Fun is sitting at the beach. What are you talking about? So my ultimate goal is to have survivors, lived experience experts running things so that I feel comfortable that it is going to be authentic and it's going to be, well done, getting the right people in the right places.
And to reward the work that you've done in paving that path with rest, right? Like to return to rest. Yeah.
Yes. That's the goal.
There's a couple things that I want to just, still on expertise, some of the things that you're doing in this work. I know that there's 2 other things that I really want to, like, there's so many, but there's 2 other things that I really want to just touch on. So you have a curriculum out, and then if you want to just share a little bit about what it's like to be the global chairperson of the G100 anti-trafficking wing.
Yeah, well, the G100, I'll start there, is so fascinating to me. It's still swirling around in my head. I still feel a little bit lost, to tell you the truth, but it's bringing women together from around the globe. So of course you were the first person I thought of, and there's a couple of women now I've gotten to know from different countries, and we're really just designing the path. It's like we're pioneers again. We're sort of blazing the trail, and what it will look like, I don't know, because we are designing as we go, right? So, I mean, I'm thinking I have a grant that I'm going to be talking to you about too, because it's a global grant that I want to submit that's due in January. So that may be something, but how this thing takes shape, I'm not sure, but the goal is to really lift women up and organize and reward and give voice to, because one of my issues when I do see women, they seem to be very hardworking and very humble at it. And so I feel like one of my jobs is to go back to women and uplift them with whatever it might be, certificates, awards, presentation. Like, you got to have these accolades as well, so that society will open doors. I mean, this is the game we're playing. I see women so talented, but they're humble. And so part of that is to give them a global stage and then let them shape it the way that they want to. Now, the courses that I have, we have an Emancipation Nation network, and anybody can Google that and they can go on there, and there are free webinars about human trafficking and different components. And we have paid courses there. One of them's on case management that I do. One of them's on a prevention curriculum for youth. My latest is a book that I wrote called The Survivor's Journey. And it is 12 healing journeys from interpersonal traumas and a workbook. And I'm training facilitators. I'm in the women's prison here. It's a state prison for women in Ohio. And I'm doing a randomized controlled trial because I want to create an evidence-based model. And once I create this evidence-based model, I can start getting it out into the world, because at least here in the US, most of our cities, child welfare, for instance, child protection, in about 85% of the child protection cases, there's domestic violence present.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sexual assault, interestingly, you're mixed, I'm mixed, and that's like one of the highest rates of women who are sexually assaulted are biracial and multiracial. Um, Domestic violence, intimate partner violence, all of those traumas. Of course, women in prison are disproportionately victims of those crimes
Mm-hmm.
before they went to prison. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to create an evidence-based model is what governments or state agencies will look toward, not just, I think this is great, I evaluated or somebody evaluated it, but to create an evidence-based model means that it could be listed on different state or government websites so that people know where to get it when they're looking for
Mm-hmm.
something that is evidence-based. So that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
working on now. Very much like a AA program where you're going through 12 healing journeys, but you're really working as fast or as slow as you want to through each journey. And each journey really focuses on different things like trust that we talked about, or
Mm-hmm.
relationship, or, all of those things. So,
And
yeah.
you have an evidence-based training already for working with youth as well. Is that correct?
It's been evaluated a couple of times. I mean, I have to do a randomized control trial on that, but it's showing some really good results in the juvenile court system where it's being used. And so, yeah, I like to say I use my science in service. So I like to use my research skills to help people. Otherwise, I'm not interested in a study that's going to go on a shelf in a book and collect dust. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wasting your life. Yeah,
right, exactly. What's
yeah,
the point of that? So,
yeah.
yeah, so that's what
Awesome.
I'm
I love
into.
that. So how do people like, how do they, do you have like a website or something that has everything that you offer where if someone's like, I'm interested in Emancipation Nation, like they just go find you and all of that's there?
They can actually Google Emancipation Nation Network and you can join for free right now. I mean, it's going to be in some months, we're going to charge a little fee, but right now you can join free and then you can get all the webinars for free. There are courses that you can pay for, but there are a lot of webinars that you can just take those for free. There's over 1,200 people from across the US and around the world. You can network with them. You can message anybody. It's like a little closed Facebook kind of.
Mm, okay.
Um, so yeah, people post things in there. So it's sort of
Mhm,
like a way to get connected in a community that's interested in what you're interested in. If you're interested in social justice and human
mhm.
trafficking work and things like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And then the podcast has the same name. Is that
Yeah,
right?
podcast
That's
is called Emancipation Nation. So we have over 200 episodes there. I'm going to
wow.
start back in January.
Okay.
And so there's lots of good information there from different experts, whether they're lived experts or researchers or programmers. So,
Hmm. Hmm. Beautiful. You are just like, I don't know if you hear yourself, but there are so many things happening that you've done. Like, as I said, my hero. I don't know how you juggle all the balls, and that
I
will
mean,
be
I'm
my
still
next question.
excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I love creating, I love helping people. And I have a new little grandson. He's 2 years old now. So
Mm.
that's why I stopped the podcast for a year because I thought, shoot, what am I doing? I want to go play with him. So I
Yeah.
so I'm
Yes.
doing
Yeah. Well,
that.
and that's part of our wellness, right? Again, I think that
That's
those,
right.
especially as we age, the values start to shift. Like, you
That's
know what?
right.
I've made as much money as I'm going to make. I'm got as much education as like, what do I have now in terms of when I'm older and
Yes.
I want to focus on family, right? What can I give them? How can I be there? How can I show up? And
That's
starting
right.
to kind of set some of those boundaries.
Yeah,
Um,
my daughter she's moved back in, brought the grandson home. Secretly, we're
mhm,
tickled to death. We love it. And every single day I get to wrestle. He growls at me and it's like, come on, grandma, it's time to wrestle. And I'm like, okay, I'm his best wrestle buddy. So let me tell you, out of all this stuff I do, that's the best thing to do.
And in the research that I'm doing, that actually has popped up that family in terms of social wellness is
Yeah.
one of the most important pieces for folks who, you're going into the world, you're trying to establish emotional safety. You have this history of victimization, there's stigma in the workplace. People don't really understand where you come from. But if you have, even if it's a small one, a healthy, social support system within your family and friend set, you have what you
Yes.
need to kind of maybe not thrive, but to
Yeah.
survive the
Yeah,
experience.
absolutely. At least one
Yeah.
person you adopt as a family member, but
Family
yeah,
by choice,
absolutely.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cecilia, what are some of the things in early career versus now that you struggled with around wellness?
Well, my early career, I think I struggled with, I thought I had to work, work, work when it finally clicked in that I can be successful, that somebody has opened the door that I can run through it and I can be successful at school and I can be successful at work. And I got that in my head, like work hard, work hard, work hard. And I was always unsure and always
Mm-hmm.
having to feel like I had to prove myself worthy. And that was my struggle early on. And I proved myself and I went through all the gates and I've done all the things. And at my university, I've gone from, assistant professor to associate professor to full professor. Like people who come to university, they think they call teachers professors, but really there's a lot of hoops to get to that level. And, once you get to full professor, there's distinguished professor. And, I've done that. And it's, there's about 25% of professors actually become full professors and probably less than 10% become distinguished professors. And I don't know how many are women or how many are women of color, even smaller.
And
So
how many are women of color with a history of domestic violence that were raised in a school setting that didn't want to teach them and even how to read and write properly? Yes.
right,
Amen to
right.
that,
So,
girl. Yes.
so I feel pretty blessed. I feel pretty accomplished. And now my struggle is, you know, do this because you enjoy it. Do this because it makes a real difference. I'm no longer chasing grants and publications. It doesn't matter. Do it because it makes a difference. Do it because you enjoy it. And the moment I get myself caught up in things that I don't enjoy, I have to tap myself on the back and say, who are you trying to prove a point to? Stop. So, so that's been a struggle because, of course, I've been chair of the school. I hated it.
Yeah.
And so I ended up quitting and I have never quit. That was
So that
like,
must have hurt. Yeah. Sometimes in our wellness, we got to do things. And I say this all the time, like loving yourself, self-care, self-love, all of those wellness. Sometimes that's about doing shit you don't want to do because
yeah,
it's what's best.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I quit and it took a friend of mine to go, what are you doing? Like, you hate this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, but I can't quit. Why?
The ego. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
And
I
that's how
ended
we
up,
break some of those lies and break some of those core beliefs, right? Because the
yep,
ego says, if I quit, even though I'm not enjoying this, even though this is not for me, if I stop doing it, I lose worth. And so the
yep,
only way to challenge that is to, again, own your truth, own your
yep,
voice,
yep.
right? Mhm.
Exactly. To say I am good enough, no
Yes.
matter what, and one of my friends told me this. She said, what people think of you is none of your business.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, that's a hard one for me because I like people to like me as everybody does,
Hmm.
And so if you don't, wow, what do I do with that? And she said, well, it's really none of your business what they think.
Uh-huh.
And so that one still, I think it would still very much bother me, but I'm getting a little more comfortable with being who I am, just being who I am and not turning my dial up or down. I just heard somebody say, every woman, every Black person, every person of color, like turns their Blackness up when they feel relaxed and around friends, and turns it down when they're in an environment where they're uncomfortable. And I'm trying to reach that level of freedom where I am and where I'm comfortable being 100% my full self and not my diet self, I'm not bringing you my diet personality, but I'm bringing you my full flavored personality. And so that's really what I've learned over the years. I don't think I could have done it so well as if I didn't feel accomplished, but now I feel I'm going to bring you my 100%.
I'm like you, very stubborn, very resistant, I guess, rigid, people have said, and I find it really challenging, because I want to be liked. Of course, I want to be respected, all of those things, but I detest pretense. I detest inauthenticity, fakeness. I don't have the energy emotionally to engage in those sorts of politics. Like, I just don't, right? Yeah, so I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, and so you surround yourself, I'm sure, with people who are more authentic and real, and, deal with those fake people when you have to. And that's kind of what I try to do, surround myself. And I try to give people permission to just be real.
Well, I find the challenge in being real is that, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go out into those spaces and I'm going to speak my truth. I always have. I've always felt a lot like I'm the odd one out. I'm the one people are kind of roll their eyes when I start talking, because I'm always saying something, shedding that spotlight on that elephant, looking under the rug, like, hey guys, what about this? And it's more work, and it's more, it's just more everything, right? It's the hard route. And having people who, don't respond to me as a human, as a person well, because of that, right? This is where being an entrepreneur has been really freeing, really emancipating, because I get to own my voice, without necessarily carrying as much shame when I'm leaving those spaces, or fear of consequence or reprisal. I can really just step into my gifts and say, this is what I know. You have the option to continue to engage with and teach and learn from me, or not, but I get to be authentic. I get to be me.
That's right.
Right?
As it should be. Right. As it should be. And I think people now, they know where we're coming from. I mean, if you can afford, there are plenty of people that I know that they can't afford that because they have jobs and kids to feed. And I get that.
Exactly.
But, my role is to hopefully make people feel comfortable to be themselves. And that sometimes that takes time. One of the things that I learned is, like, when you have the power and you're in the room, shut up. And when you don't have the power and you're in the room, speak up. So I want to facilitate that as much as possible. And sometimes I'll say things, I'll show my authentic self, and people feel a little awkward, or maybe they'll laugh at what I did. But, the point is to show you it's okay. Like I said, what does that mean in a meeting? Because I know other people are afraid to say, what does that mean? Or, if I say, oh, sorry, I'm late, I don't have any excuse at all, totally forgot, menopause, and people it'll be a little bit uncomfortable. But, all of those reasons are just to let you just unbutton the top button of your pants, metaphorically, relax.
Well, let's normalize being humans, right?
Yeah.
I mean, professionals are still humans. If we can be transparent in our relationships, be humble, be honest, be real, we're going to be able to collaborate. We're going to be able to support one another in much more meaningful ways. And that's part of decolonization, right? Is stepping outside of those systems, constructs, and processes that have us hiding ourselves and limiting our work.
Absolutely. Gives people permission to do so as well. And I think that's where we allow women, people of color, those with disabilities, those who are different, the LGBTQ, we allow people to come in and be different, show their difference, be authentic, and still be accepted, respected, and can do the work alongside everybody else.
Right. Yeah. So I have a few more questions. Thank you so much. Like, you've just shared so many really amazing things, and I totally feel like I could just have a whole, 7 or 8 episodes of Celia Williamson.
That's too
Uh,
much.
but you talked about imposter syndrome, you talked about shame, self-sabotage, feeling like you need to hustle for your worth, those sorts of things. And I'm curious about what's helped you in maintaining your wellness. Those are my
What I love to do, and I do this very, very purposefully, I do 2 things very purposefully. Every night before I check out for the night, I write down my list of what I need to do the next day. And then when I accomplish that list, I'm done. Or if I didn't, I move it to the next day. But that disciplines me so that I know how long my day is going to be. If I see somebody in the hallway and I start talking to them for half an hour, best believe in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you're just added a half an hour onto your day. So I'm very disciplined like that. And the second thing I do very, very purposefully is I design who is in my life, who is in my space. I do that by design. So I will purposefully start to distance people who I think are unhealthy, toxic, or whatever to me. And I won't do it abruptly and I won't do it meanly. There's an assessment I've made and there's an intervention that I'm implementing. So call that person less. I accept their calls less often and just less and less and less. The people that I think are positive and nurturing to me and are moving in alignment with me, I design bringing them closer. And I do this because I know one thing about myself is that I'm very influenced. I don't want to be.
Yes.
I want to be that strong, independent, but I'm not. So I know whoever is around me will influence me. So if somebody's around me and they're like drinking a lot, I'm going to start drinking more, I'm going to be influenced. So I'm very careful with who's in my inner circle. And I distance people who are not healthy for me or don't help me move in the direction I'm trying to move. And that could be family or friends.
Yes. Or professionals or organizations.
Or
yeah.
right.
All of them. Yeah.
And
anyone you can be in relationship with, don't let them mess with you, man. Yeah.
right. That's so true because and I had a mother she was very nice and she loved me and I loved her greatly and all the stuff, but she's toxic. So I had to take care of her because she got old and, sick. And so in those spaces where I can't distance you physically because you are in my space, then I will distance emotionally. Like I will do all the things, but it won't sink in. Like I just have this great thing that I do in my mind where I just say, woo, you crazy.
I like it.
And I kind of just, I don't say it out loud because that's rude, but I just say it and for me, it helps me take that 50-pound burden that you just try to give me that isn't mine, boom, back onto you. Or it lets me sort of swat away any of that negativity that you're trying to make me feel guilty about or make me own. It's not mine. And so I'll just be like, whew, crazy. And I will go on with my day because I will not let it sink into me. And so I either physically distance or I emotionally distance in those rare times that I can't physically distance, but and I get have so much energy back
Mm-hmm.
because there was so much emotional energy and spiritual energy going out to that experience.
Yeah, to
And it's like,
heal, to heal yourself or to defend yourself, right? It's this
yes,
constant that energy is
yes,
either, shielding you from harm or it's now being activated so you can get to some sort of baseline of
exactly.
normalcy in your emotional and mental wellness.
Right. You can't move. You just get back to baseline. So it's like, this is ridiculous. I mean, I have a sister I probably haven't talked to in 10 years, and I'm fine with that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad at her. She's just not healthy. And I can't be your victim. I can't
Mm-hmm.
allow you to abuse me
Mm-hmm.
because you are misguided. And it's
Yes.
not even her fault. I don't know what it is, but I can't do that. So
Right. Yeah.
I don't, it took me a while and now I haven't talked to her in 10 years and I'm totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I have the energy I need to do the work that inspires me and that I like doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's a lot of people out there that are like, wow, I really would love to do this. But man,
Mm-hmm.
I after work or I must be lazy. Sometimes it's not lazy. It's the people in your life that have been sucking the spiritual and
Mm-hmm.
emotional energy out of you. You can't go out there and have the world empty your bucket and come home and your people in your home are emptying your bucket. Like what?
Yes.
Like somewhere there has to be give.
Yes.
And some people think that's mean
Mm-hmm.
if you don't help everybody that asks you. But you can't, because there are some people that they're like parasite. They would just suck the life out of you. If
Yeah.
you have to distance, and you're not mean if you do that, because they will find somebody else.
There's so
Don't,
much to what you're saying because I think, firstly, there's a difference between people that you work with versus people that you allow into your inner circle. So we're not saying
yeah,
don't work with any of those toxic people, but don't have them speak into your life in meaningful ways if,
right.
and again, I like how you said earlier, like you're not in alignment. One of the things that I've been working on over the last few years is detaching from judgment. So, I would say, oh, my ex is abusive and he was, so unhealthy, those things. Um, and now I say I experienced our relationship as abusive. We weren't healthy together because I don't know what he's like in other relationships.
Oh,
I
that's
only know my
good.
experience,
Yeah,
right?
that's good. I might
But
use that.
it's really about misalignment and whether or not you're healthy together. I don't get to judge who you are as a human, but I can absolutely judge your impact in my life. And you said some other things there around, having boundaries with your time, having an intentional social circle.
Mhm.
Earlier, you talked, it's important to know yourself, like you know that you're influenced by people. So that's something that you
Mhm.
need to set boundaries around, right? So knowing yourself and also knowing your limits. You spoke about walking away from people, yes, but you also talked about, that position that you had in the university that you hated and how you had to challenge
Mhm.
yourself to quit. That was a limit. That was a
Yeah.
limit. It was taking joy. It was taking energy. And so knowing yourself, knowing your limits, having those boundaries and being intentional about the people you are allowing to speak into your life, to have value. You spoke about detaching emotionally from that family member. And what came to me right away is like, you're just not taking it personally.
Mhm.
You're creating a separation for yourself. They're creating some emotional
Yes.
boundaries,
Yes.
to contain your safety in. And those are super huge, super valuable. They're transferable. It's not just your friends and your family. Again, it's organizations, it's workplaces, it's bosses. I can't tell you how many times I've had to go to executive directors or managers and either have conversations about dynamics with other coworkers,
Mhm.
or direct, like, hey, you said this thing to me in public in front of everyone, and I want to address that because I don't play like that, and I'm not the one.
Mhm.
like,
Right.
like I am not. I no. I did my abusive years. I did my time,
Yep.
and now I have value. And if you're not going to value me, I'm going to first show you how, because perhaps you've never been in relationship with someone with my needs. But if you're not going to meet those needs, then we're going to need to find a way to move on.
Yeah, I think it's very gracious. So I'm really, really about that life, because being able to craft and design who is in your inner circle is so important to your time, your boundaries, just like you said. And then if you want to move forward and get things accomplished, I like to create lists, not that the list doesn't stress me out. In fact, when I write it all on a paper and I can go to sleep, or I can spend the rest of the evening, it kind of relieves my stress because I don't have to remember. I just have to wake up the next day and look at it. So for me, that works. As life gets so complicated, in our institute, we have, over like 7 different grants and different funders and different meetings. And I can't just wake up and remember. And, so being able to, have a list is it directs my life. I know how long my day is going to last, just so many benefits for me.
So it's good for your wellness. Sounds like it's good for your professional journey as well. What else helps you in your professional journey?
I mean, in my professional journey, I do engage a lot of people that I like. I engage a lot of people that I don't like. And in my professional journey, not to, I learned to focus on the mission, and I learned to ask myself repeatedly when I'm upset, is this about your ego, or is this hurting the mission? Because if it's about my ego, then I'm going to have to walk away and I'm going to have to process that. If it's indeed hurting the mission, then I have to step up and I have to engage that. I have to advocate. I have to fight. I have to, whatever I have to do. Because if you hurt the mission, you hurt a lot of people that don't have a voice. They don't have the platform. If you bruise my ego, like, who gives a shit? Like, oh, so,
I feel like I remember you calling me to task on this in the last year, actually. Yeah, I feel like I remember a conversation about like everybody in the movement is here for the same reason. You got to check your ego. I would be serious in favor of the cause. And I was like, I don't like you, girl. No, I'd be mad. Yeah.
And I mean, I still struggle. It's still a struggle. But that's what I try to do, because I'm like, okay, you got lots of people you can go get support from. They'll help you with your ego or whatever. But you have to deal with this person. You don't like them, but they're the piece of the puzzle we got to deal with right now. Because if we want to get this passed, or if we want to get this program or this funding, well, this is the person that has the key to the door. So deal with them. And so I try to do that and move on. I don't want to have coffee with them. I don't want to have a beer with them. But we can get together.
Yeah.
We're going to do this thing, and then we're going to move on.
Like, there's 2 core pieces to this. We're making lists to make sure we stay on task and manage stress, but we're also remaining open to others, whether you have the same kind of vision or not, right? Same approach, but really being focused on the mission, what's in common in terms of the missions that you're pursuing, and really intentionally, consciously staying out of ego so that you can prioritize the work.
Yeah. Now my inner circle is different. That we have to be in alignment, and we have to, I like those people. I enjoy those people. I can be my full self all the time, that. But when I'm in my professional experience, there's all shapes and flavors to that experience. So,
well, I will just say this. I don't know about you, but for myself, thinking about what helps in that professional journey, like people that challenge me, like yourself, right? People that I respect, who I know respect me, who believe in the work that I do, who have acted as allies, mentors, supports without any strings or conditions attached. I want to learn from those folks, and I want them to challenge me, right? So, I mean, even when I'm doing, for example, a conference, one of the challenges of being a lived experience speaker is that when you're able to tell your story quite eloquently, um, there's a high level of emotion that becomes attached to that
Yeah.
prevents people from now saying what they think and asking the questions they need to ask. And that's something that I have to revisit constantly and say, like, I got a thick skin. Like, we need to have this conversation. You need to challenge anything you don't understand, because this is where we grow. It's not just from listening to me, from dialogue,
Yeah, that's
right?
very cool. Yeah. Love that.
What advice would you give to organizations that work with survivor leaders, Celia?
I would say understand all the talents that come into the room. Not only survivor leaders, understand their skills and talents and value that they bring into the room. And if you can't see them eventually running the organization or running the coalition or collaboration, then check your values and why do you really want them here?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that also plays into the whole idea of collaboration, which I don't think a lot of people understand or do effectively. Because what
Mm-hmm.
happens in reality is you come to a coalition or a commission or what group of diverse people into the room, and everybody says they want to collaborate, but they're either on their phone because they're there just to put it on their resume, or they were made to come, or I'm coming to find out what I can get for my agency. The hell with you, rest of you people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's anything but collaboration.
Yeah.
So survivors are there because we all want to say we have survivors at the table, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to honor them or actually listen to them, particularly if they have a diverse opinion that's going to make us work harder. So I think being able to come to the table and learn about collaboration, because even you have preconceived notions about the police that are there. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
pick on them because this is my struggle. But it's, oh, I know what they're all about.
Mm-hmm.
I've read about it. I've seen but
Mm-hmm.
you don't know those three people or two people or person. You're not willing to show them grace or get to know them
Mm-hmm.
because you have these preconceived notions about what the people are about already.
Right.
And so that all those things hinder real collaboration, whether it's with survivors at the table or whether it's with whatever profession. The police might be looking at us as social workers saying, no, you're just tree hugging, rainbow puppy petting people or whatever.
Yes.
So I think all of those things really hinder the value and the talents that people can bring into the
Mm-hmm.
room.
Yeah.
But if they're at the table and they're in the room, there could be people there that are there because they went into those professions or they had this experience and they want to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where, when we're doing this work, you know, again, trauma informed, healing engaged, all the things, it's about relationship. And it's not just about relationship with service recipients. It's
Yeah.
about relationship with one another. As professionals, again, we are also humans. Let's expand the timeline a little bit and insert into the agenda getting to know each other as humans,
Yeah.
some relationship building, some understanding what each other's gifts, skills, hopes, passions are, so that we can plug people in where their gifts and passions are most useful, but also so
Exactly.
that we know how to support them and connect with them and maybe not take offense to certain things that come, because we have a better understanding of where they're coming from.
Yes.
Yeah. I like what you were saying about collaboration, and I wanted to just add a little piece there. There's a difference between collaboration and fair collaboration. So when I'm thinking about work with survivors, especially, fair collaboration to me looks a lot more like, how would you like to be acknowledged for your participation in this?
Mhm.
How can I promote you as a survivor leader? Can I put your logo on it? How much do I need to pay you? How can I advertise on your behalf? How can I share information about what you're
Yes.
doing with others? like collaboration in that context is not just about taking what you need and slapping your name on it and giving me, a gift card or even $1,000, because my work that you're using, that I've contributed to, will continue to produce
That's right.
value. And
Mhm.
so how are you going to continue to produce value?
Mhm.
Right? In terms of where is
Exactly.
the reciprocity? And why, as a survivor leader, are we less entitled to that reciprocity because of the adversity that we've survived and bounced back from? Like,
Mhm.
those pieces feel a little bit backwards. And when I think about
Mhm.
fair collaboration, it's not just about bringing voices to the table,
Mm.
right? What
Yeah.
advice would you give to survivor leaders in this work?
I It's difficult for me because I'm humbled by the expertise that they do bring to the table. So I'm like, who am I to be giving? But, I would say that understand that there are some collaborators, some people that you could partner with that also have lived experiences in other areas.
Amen.
But those
Yeah.
underlying issues of oppression or invisibility or marginalization, sometimes you can connect with other people on those issues.
Mhm.
And when you connect with them on those issues, you may feel like you have more of an authentic and genuine partner. Your partner may feel like they have permission to share that part of themselves. And
Mhm.
so then you have partnership, you have collaboration, you have understanding. And a lot of people have been trained and taught not to be authentic and not to talk about those things and to present themselves in their suits and
Mhm.
briefcases or whatever. But being able to connect with someone, gives you, you're starting to build your inner circle professionally of people
Yeah.
that you can learn to trust.
Mhm.
And that just gives you another leg up because you need that partnership. You can't get out there in the world isolated. That's not healthy. You need some people that, you can even vent with because they
Mhm.
understand your heart. So even if you say something that's inappropriate or whatever, you can say it to them because they understand your heart. They know you. And so you don't have to be walking on eggshells. You can be real. And
Yeah.
they still know that you're about the mission and they still know you want to make a difference, even though you just went in their office or whatever and you just talked about how much you can't stand this other person or whatever. It's okay. You need to
Yeah.
do that and we can do that. And then we'll go back out and we'll just do the good work.
Yes.
So I think, for me, that's what helps me stay in the game is I have some people in my
Mhm.
inner circle that I can trust with my ugliness, but they still know that my heart is good and they know what I'm ultimately trying to do.
Right. So I'm hearing, find your tribe,
Mhm.
recognize the intersection between your lived experience and others.
You say it so beautifully. Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And just remaining open, right?
Yeah,
Remaining open to the work. Hmm.
yeah,
And the fact that there are trustworthy collaborations out there. And I would like to just kind of add to that, if and when you're able to practice knowing your limits, knowing yourself,
mhm,
having boundaries, and being intentional about your social circle, being able to maintain your wellness, to attend to your professional journey in a good way, is what really is going to allow you to have that space. Maybe
yes,
not to be able to prejudge whether that collaboration is safe, but to be able to act when you recognize that it isn't safe for you.
yes, yes. Truth, wisdom. Yes.
Is there a message of encouragement or guidance you would leave for survivors who are still fairly early in their recovery journey? I know we've been talking about anti-trafficking and human trafficking, but I think, as a survivor of domestic violence as well,
Mhm.
just again, thinking about your own journey and what that has looked like and felt like as someone who's wanting to go to school, elevate in life from where you came
Yeah.
from, right? Any words of encouragement or guidance in that early recovery journey?
Yeah, I would say that, you have talents and you have brilliance. And if you refuse to share that with the world, we all lose.
Mm.
So please don't let people tell you, whether it's implied or whether it's direct, please don't let people try to dim your light and try to tell you that you're not worthy of this. Or please don't look at these people in the positions you want. And just because they don't look like you, they don't talk like you, it doesn't mean it can't be you.
Yeah.
So I would just say, please keep trying. Don't tell yourself no. In fact, tell yourself yes. And if you
Mm-hmm.
talk to yourself, which you should do, please answer yourself. Because why the hell talk to yourself if you're not going to give yourself the answer? But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's the wisest conversation you have had all day. So
Mm-hmm.
please keep trying and keep succeeding, because not only for yourself, but there are other ones, little ones around you looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are teaching, you're guiding, you're mentoring, you're giving
Mm-hmm.
permission to. And so when you give up, not only do you leave the world without your talents, but there are other people that you might be influencing that you don't even know are watching what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So if not for yourself, give your talents and skills to the world. Keep trying. Have a certain hard-headedness to you. Don't listen to the fools. And it's okay to be hard-headed and not listen sometimes if it's
Mm-hmm.
for your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say. And if you keep moving down that path, you are going to, get to a place that's going to be a better place for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you do what's true to you, you find freedom.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So to close, I would love it if you could just reflect on some of the work that you've done with folks. And I've invited everybody to kind of give a shout out to somebody with lived experience, a professional who's had an impact on their life.
Yeah. I think I'd like to give a shout out to two of my students, Jacob and Lashana. I have been their mentor for several years,
Mm-hmm.
and now they are my mentor. So they have circled back to me. They both have two very successful businesses where they're behavioral health organizations, and they're making a huge impact in people's lives, a big impact, and they're making a big income. So I love those two eyes, big impact, big income. And, you know, because I think a lot of us who are helping people, we think we have to make pennies. If you are making an impact on the world, and, my goal is to change the world. Like I want to make such a big impact. And I also want to make such a big income. I like
Yeah.
both of those eyes. I like
Yeah.
money. Money likes me. I'm not ashamed to say that if I'm giving value to the world, that the world recognizes that and says, well, we're going to help you take care of your house, your car, your family, so that you don't have to worry about that, so that you can go out and continue to do the great work. Yeah. So my two students that graduated started their own companies, massively successful.
So,
Jacob Spellis, Vital Health, he does probably a $3 to $4 million a year business.
mhm,
Lashana Alfred, she runs a smaller mental health and counseling. He runs mental health and substance abuse services. She runs mental health counseling. And so, she's very successful too, though not quite at his level. But they both circled back to me and said, hey, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm over here making a difference over here. Okay, no. Come do what we're doing so that you
mhm,
can make a difference, and you can make the income to help your family, to set your grandson up for success, do all those things too. And so they really just dragged me down the road. So and so it's been wonderful because a lot of people that get into behavioral health, they pay thousands of dollars to learn how to do this. And my two students are circling back saying, you helped us. Now we're going to help you for free.
Love that.
And so I got to shout them out because I wasn't even thinking anywhere along the lines of what they made me start thinking about.
Yes.
Lashana is lived experience in that she spent several years in prison carrying drugs from one country to another. Just a really horrible childhood, turned her entire life around to be highly successful. Jacob sold drugs, spent a few years in prison, and now he works with men coming out of prison,
Wow.
getting their lives together. Both of them have done amazing work. I'm so proud of them. And I used to just be proud of them, but they came back and said, no, you're going to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
Runs a program called You Change.
You Change.
And both in Toledo, Ohio. And both very accomplished, very successful, great credibility and reputations in our community. And they are helping people that are, I would say, the most marginalized. So, yeah.
All right. Shout out to Jacob and Lashana. Hey, if you're hiring, I'm here. No.
Yeah, they are amazing.
So happy to hear lived experience folks making an impact, in collaboration with folks that are professionals without the same lived experience. It's beautiful, it's important, and it's productive. So that's awesome. And thank you so much, Celia, for coming today. It has just been so incredible learning from you and having an opportunity.
Yeah, anything you need, of course, you let me know because I understand your heart and I know where you're going in life. And so I celebrate that. So anything that you need, of course, always let me know.
Thank you. Yeah. Same to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
Much success with the podcast. I'm sure you are helping many, many people who will listen to it. And I hope they get something from it. Take what you need and leave the rest.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, listeners, for joining us for our conversation with our sister's keeper, Dr. Celia Williamson. We're so glad to have had you listening today, and we look forward to sharing more with you in the future.